Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Green Pill podcast episode. I'm your host, Jeffrey, with my co-host, Kat. Today, we're talking about loneliness. Loneliness is a very serious epidemic these days, with a lot of folks trying to pull the lonely in this direction and that, and laying blame on this and that. Loneliness is difficult. It's difficult for boys and it's difficult for girls. It is having friends is one of the keys to fighting loneliness, but sometimes it's hard to make friends. If you're just playing online and these are your online friends, it's not the same thing. It's okay, but it's not the same thing. And because you're probably not telling your online friends about the things that are concerning you the most. And that's the topic for today. And Kat, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's weird. The world has gotten bigger and smaller at the same time. You know, um, every time people diss on social media a lot, and I sit there and I go, on the one hand, if we'd had Facebook when I was in school, on the one hand, yeah, I probably would have been a lot less lonely. But on the other hand, I would have been a ripe target for cyberbullying. They would have it would have just been another way for the people who were horrible to me to be horrible to me. And I have every confidence that they would have gone out of their way to do that.
Absolutely.
So,
It happens today. It would happen back then.
yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this though. My kid who is 18, the pandemic was actually the best thing that ever happened to her,
Hmm.
academically and socially and everything else, because school went online, and she was one of the kids who did really, really well in an online environment. And because I have MS, I was able to keep her online for the rest. I got a note from my doctor that said, please don't send her back to an overcrowded school where she could, bring COVID home to me because bad. Um, yeah. And so she just did, it took away all of her social problems and whatever. And she has eked out for herself this little online community of people that she has found from various niches. Of some of them I know from places like the Doctor Who cons that I know you from. And there's this little online community for herself, and she's not lonely anymore, which
Yeah,
is amazing to me.
right.
And would she like to see some of these people in person? Sure, but a lot of them live in other countries.
Absolutely.
So whatever. She's
Right.
doing her thing and it's fine.
Yeah, because absolutely, yes, it is nice to see people in person, but the pandemic made that near-wise impossible. Having the online communities, but I think the underscore here is that they're online communities which can talk a little bit about what's bothering you. Not always is that going to be possible in a community or in a social platform. If you're going on Twitter, aka X,
Nobody's ever going to call it that.
I
Sorry, Elon.
know,
Ain't
I
nobody ever
know.
calling it that.
Look, I like your cars, dude, but you're doing this wrong. Um, if you're going to go posting on that, all your laments, people are not going to follow you. That's really what it comes down to. You gotta be a little positive because you're expected to be positive. It's not the forum for talking about your problems. And that'll isolate you and that'll keep you lonely. If you do have these trusted groups that are online, that's a great way to sort of unwind and become part of that community because you'll feel a sense of community. And that's really what loneliness is about, a lack of community.
I mean, I'm dating this conversation now, but only recently Elmo went on Twitter and said, "Hey, internet, Elmo wants to know how's everybody doing." And the internet was all over it going, Elmo, I'm going to get real with you. I'm hanging on by a thread.
Mm,
There was so much of that. And look, Elmo was not my period of Sesame Street.
no,
I
either.
before that, but yeah, I thought it was really, really sweet.
Yeah,
And people were just like pouring their hearts out to
right.
Elmo,
Yeah,
who
that
then
was
responded and
oh,
said, Elmo hears you and is going to check in again because I care about you. And it was
absolutely
really sweet. And I think these people felt heard for a second.
right.
And I maybe it helped. So whoever's keeping that account, go you. Way
Yes,
to
yes,
go,
yes.
Elmo.
Absolutely.
Way to go.
That is perfect. Obviously, being heard is a lot of what loneliness lacks because you're sitting and you're spinning and you're wondering, and maybe you're popping on YouTube and maybe you're watching the stuff that we are trying to dissuade you from, the red pill stuff, the black pill stuff, the stuff that is telling you that, it is everyone else's fault. We're not saying it's your fault, but we are saying there are things you can do to stop it. There are things that you can do to find your community, to find your shared interests, and to become part of it, and not to become part of a group that just laments and blames, but a part of a group that does something. Maybe cosplay's your thing. Maybe Doctor Who, as we've talked about. Maybe you like to read. There are a lot of great book clubs. Maybe you like to write. There are a lot of great writing groups. Maybe you like to speak. There's always Toastmasters. There's all kinds of things you can do to socialize. Maybe you want to be politically active. Maybe you want to go down and lobby for equal rights and all of that kind of stuff. It's okay. Do it. You'll meet people and you'll be enriched by all of the other points of view, as well as being heard, where you can express among friends what you're going through.
I mean, my big thing is maybe find some corner of the internet that you can go to that where your interests are and find a way to go be nice to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because that's unfortunately what a lot of social media is right now, is people going on there to be rude to other people, or people wanting to one up other people or find a way to feel superior to other people or shoot them down. And it's just as easy to go somewhere else and say, that's cool of you, or that's
Mm.
nice of you, or, and if there's something that isn't, then maybe just scroll past it. But
Yeah.
this is, I think, the way to combat. Now, I made friends with a guy in a group because he posted about the Hudsucker Proxy and was like, does anyone else remember this film?
Mm.
And we bonded over it and we've been bros ever since. And I think he lives in California, and we've been bros because we both liked this thing.
It's a
I
freaking
didn't sit
awesome
there and
film.
go, oh my
No.
God, that you like that movie, it's the stupidest thing ever.
Wrong. It's
You
cool.
know,
I've seen
it
it. It's awesome.
exactly, but it was something positive
But
that we
yes,
could share.
absolutely. But that's the thing. Be positive. And the Elmo quote is actually really useful. Maybe just make it an effort to go on social media and ask how everyone's doing. It can be that simple, because asking for someone else and giving some of your emotional spoons to someone else may be just the key to having someone give you some of theirs. And that, I think, is really what we're talking about here. But I do want to talk about one other thing that we're not going to talk about in this episode, but therapy. Don't be ashamed of it. I personally have seen therapists for many years. It's nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of with therapy.
Therapy if you need it, meds if you need them, always a good idea.
Yeah,
Getting help is always a good idea. The help helps.
yeah. And admitting you have a problem, that's all we are saying. But reach out. Feel free to comment on this podcast and let us know we are there for you too. Thanks for watching the Green Pill Podcast.